Hi there, today I'm going to show you how to build an iPhone app and iPad app. So I'm just going to open up Xcode and I'm going to go create a new project. Xcode is downloaded for free from the App Store. I'm going to select Single View Application, click Next and give my app a name. So I'll just call it Test App. My company name is then on the line below, my organization identifier. I'm going to select Swift as the language and I'm going to build it as a universal app to work on iPhone and iPad. So I click Next and I select where to save it. I'll just select save it on desktop. Okay, so this is my app. If I press play at the top left, you'll see that Xcode launches the simulator any moment now with a blank app. So there you go, Test App, the name of my app, and that's the launch screen appearing, and then that will disappear and you'll see just the blank app because we've not added anything to it. So the first thing we want to do is go to our storyboard. So I click on storyboard on the left hand side and here's our main view. So down the bottom right here I can search for different elements on the page. So I want a text field so I can enter some text into my app. So I'll just drag my text field in and then I want a button so I can click the button and something will happen. You can see there I can just center it nice and neatly, and then I want a label so that when I click the button whatever text I've put in the text field will then appear in this label. I'll just get that centered as well. Now, the label here, I can change the color of the label to red, I can change the alignment, I can change the font size. It's very similar to sort of Word, Excel and other things that you'll have seen. So, in order to get this app to appear correctly, if I just press play now and build the app, you'll see that the buttons are all over the place and the text fields are all over the place. So in order to sort that out, I need to use auto layout. So I select my element and I want my element to be that far from the left, that far from the right hand side of the screen. I want it to be of height 30 and I want it to be this 32 pixels away from the top of the screen, so this section up here. So I select that and I do add constraints and it will add those 4 constraints. I then want the button to be that wide and that high, whether it's on the iPad, iPhone or smaller 3.5 inch screens. So I add those constraints and I also want the button to be horizontally centered. So I add that in. Now you'll see the dashes here show where the button will actually appear. So I also want to say it's got to be this distance from the text field above. So I go down here and I select that distance. So it's going to be 29 away from the text field above it. Now don't worry too much about this auto layout. It is a bit confusing to start with, but it is very powerful and very good once you get used to it. So now with this UI label, I want it to be 84 from the left, 84 from the right, which are these distances from the edge of the label to the edge of the screen, 84 pixels. I want it to be 29 pixels away from the button above. And I want its height to be 21 pixels. So that little section there, the label will be 21 pixels high. If I add those constraints, what will happen if I now press play, it should, there we go, so it's centered everything. If I now press Command and left on the cursor to change it to landscape mode, you can see it automatically extends the width of this text field. That's because I said I wanted the text field to be that close to the left side and that close to the right side. So when I make it that distance, it's still just as close to the sides. So it's really powerful, and if I did the iPad app, it would just be a bigger version if I built that. So we've got our UI. Now we need to start doing our code. So this is the main storyboard, and this is our view controller class here. To see the code that will sit behind it, we select this view controller here. So this is the code section of that view. It controls that view. So if we go back to the main storyboard and we select these two circles up here, which is our assistant editor, if I select that, then I've still got this storyboard view behind, but I've also got that class that I just showed you, so the code. Now, when I press the button, I want to take the text property of this text field and populate it as the text property of this label. So I need to know about these two objects. So I'm going to press Control and then mouse drag to just inside the class at the top. Now I want to know the text of the text value of that text field, so I'm going to select Outlet and I'll call it something. So let's just call it my text field. I can call it whatever I like, but the key is in the code now, my text field here will represent this text field on the user interface. I then do exactly the same with the label. Control, drag, and place it here, and I will just call this my label. It's of type UI label and weak storage, don't worry about that at this moment. So we've done that. So we've got our text field and our label, and we can use them anywhere in this class now. So we've gone through our outlets. We now have one action, and that's the button press by the user. So I select the button and I control drag to down the bottom here in the method, and I let go. Now it's defaulted to outlet, but I actually want to make it an action, the action of the button being pressed. And let's just call it button was pressed. Again, you can call this whatever you want. It's just to create, it's just what the code's going to refer to that action as. Don't worry about the type at this moment. The event touch up inside, that just means I touched the button down and lifted my finger up while still inside the button. So that's just the default, and that's the one to go for 99% of the time with buttons. I then click connect, and you'll see it's created a method here. Now, if I just hover there, you'll see it selects the button in the user interface. So when I press that button, it's going to come in and read this line of code. So what do I want to happen when this line of code is pressed? I want that label, so my label, I want the text property of it, and you can see there's all sorts of different properties of that label, but I want the text property to equal whatever the text property is of, sorry, I don't know why that's not, of my text field. So there we go, it's just being a bit slow there. So my text field dot text. So it's going to take the text property of the text field up here and populate it in the text field of this label. At the same time, I want the label, another one of its properties, say the color attribute, to change to a different color. So let's just change it to green, from red to green. So if I now press play, you'll see the simulator should pop up any second. And here it comes with a launch screen, and here's our app. If I now type in hello world, and then click the button, then hello world gets printed here, and the text goes to green. So as you can see, very simple, very easy. One line of code, well, 2 lines of code that we had to write to do that. Hopefully this will help some other people get into developing iPhone apps, and as I said, Xcode is free to download from the App Store. Have fun. Cheers.